Project 8, correlation and regression. So this one should be pretty quick. A lot of ways you can do it. I'm going to try to set you up with the most efficient way. So we're going to start with a scatter plot depicting murder rate versus literacy rate. So let's copy out what we need from that. We need murder rate here. I'm just going to copy, put that in a new sheet. Now murder rate being first before the verses means it's Y, so I should actually put that in the second column. Literacy rate, copy, first column, and I've got those there. And now I can highlight them, and this is the easiest way to make a scatter. As long as you put X first and Y second, that's why I have to do that, I can insert a scatter. Otherwise you really have to right click, go to select data, edit, and pick which ones go where. But we're doing it so it's set up right. I can delete this and make that quite a bit bigger. Too big. I should not go above 100% on literacy rate. Let me get these axes labels in there. So horizontal is the literacy rate. You can tell because it stops at 100 for 100%. Vertical is murder rate, and that's per 100,000. Percents per 100. We don't have a symbol for per 100,000. For the title, there's a lot of things you could do. I would suggest just sample of 125 country or nations. Some of them are considered different things, but that'll work. And last couple things we want to do, it's actually the first one in the directions, to add a trend line. So we do just trend line linear, and you can right click on it, format, and check this box, and that will put the equation on there for you. So somewhere where it's kind of close to the line's best. Alright, and then lastly we need to do Pearson's R, so I'll just put a little label here, R equals Pearson. I don't believe you can do the whole column, but you can try. Oh yeah, that seems to work great. So that's my R, and I'll just right click and copy that. And this is something kind of interesting, is if you click in here, click at the end, it'll bring up the cursor, and hit enter, it'll paste what you just copied. So now go right before the negative sign, hit enter, and do R equals, and there we go. So now we have, and it's kind of a check, as long as Pearson's is negative and the slope is negative, then you know, for the most part we must have did something right. Otherwise there could be something wrong in there, but that's a little check that you could do that saves you a little bit. So we have a very weak negative linear correlation on that one. Alright, now I would call this murder rate versus literacy rate, and I would right click it, move or copy, and just make a copy at the end. And this one will be our next one, which is GNI. Just do GNI versus literacy rate. You can only make these so long. So we should be able to come over to our data. The first column's right. The literacy rate's fine. All we need is the second column, which is the GNI. Copy that, and we'll paste that right on top of B. graph updated. The trend line doesn't necessarily update. I think if you flip back and forth, these numbers don't change, so we'll have to update that. There is a problem though, and that is with the GNI data, we don't have data for certain countries. We need to remove those. Otherwise, it'll start putting 62.2 with the 30, and then it'll do 98 with the 2490, and everything's going to be off by 2. So delete every one of these rows. Just click on the row, delete, where you have no data. And we end up here with 122 because we deleted 3 of them. So I should just change that to a 122. You can't hit enter, you just have to click out of there. I'll change this to 2005 GNI, and that unit is per capita, it's like per person. Literacy rate's still true. You know what, on both of these I would really recommend making this so it doesn't go past 100. It just doesn't make sense. So that would be your minimum, or no, your maximum of 100. Enter. That's better. So go back to GNS, same thing. Let's change this so the max is 100. Enter. Over here we should change it so the min is 0. 0, enter, and that's better. We have nothing that's negative for the per capita. All of these are in dollars. You can either put that here. You can put the dollar sign on. I actually, just right after per capita, I'm going to do per capita USD because it's technically US dollars. The dollar sign could be not specific enough there. Now this is going to be inaccurate. You notice both of these are negative, so just delete it. Right click on your trend line, which that one's right, display equation, and it'll just give us a new updated equation. This one updated automatically, fortunately. So this R you can copy, click until you see a cursor there, hit enter. So 0.35 is my R. And there's number 2. Pretty good. So we have a little bit stronger. The first one was a 0.15, so you square that, and I'm not sure what you get. I could find it here. R squared equals this one squared. So that we're saying really a little over 2% of the variation of y is dependent on x, and you can really see that. Of these points, only about 2 in 100 are really close to that line. That's one way you could kind of look at it. Not exactly, but kind of. Over here, we have r squared closer to 12, a little over 12.5%. So we're getting closer to more of these points. You can see a lot of these are actually really close. If it weren't for some of these outliers, we would have a line that went right through the middle there. So these outliers are nations that are very rich in natural resources, but do not necessarily have as much education or going into government programs. So big oil countries a lot of times will, a lot of that money is going to private companies, so that's not as much maybe going into the government. Not as high taxes, maybe certain things like that. Okay, let's copy this again. Move or copy, move to the end, create a copy. Okay. This one will be infant mortality versus literacy rate. So let's just call it literacy. Enter. We'll go back to the data. We'll need our infant mortality rate and make note that that is per 1,000 live births. So that's our new Y. Paste. Now that one looks a lot more widely scattered. Oh, I need to remember that actually I deleted a lot of these rows, so I should actually just copy both of those and paste them in there because I lost some of my data, and that it looks a little too scattered, I think. If I do this, there we go. That's what I was expecting. These two have the closest relationship, a negative 0.77. That would pass a lot of hypothesis tests for correlation. Oh, I should delete that one. Let's put a new equation on there. We'll copy, Control C right here, bring up the cursor, hit enter, and come down, and R equals that. Yeah, this R squared is almost 60%, so we're really saying close to 60% of these values. Now I know it doesn't look like 60% are on or close to the line, but when you get down here, it's a really good model for these down here. When that literacy rate gets really high, your infant mortality is generally pretty low. I need to fix my axis here. And we went back to 123. So that's pretty good. That's it. Make sure you save it, change the file name, and put that in the Dropbox.